The wind howled against the estate's glass walls, rattling the smart panels I'd just calibrated that morning. I was knee-deep in routine checks when the first alerts pinged, storm incoming, fiercer than forecasted. Then the CEO arrived early, her sleek black SUV cutting through the gathering snow like it owned the horizon. Power flickered once, twice, and died. The generator failed in the blizzard's grip. There was no choice but to guide her to the main suite, the only space with backup heat. Her grip was cool, firm, and when our eyes met in the red emergency flicker, my heart skipped a beat. The professional distance I'd built for 5 years shattered. The darkening estate pressed in, wind whipping snow against the windows, amplifying the pull neither of us named yet. I manage this place like it's an extension of my own hands. The estate sits remote in the hills, a tech-sleek haven built for retreats, solar arrays humming on the roof, automated systems controlling everything from the climate to the lights. Mornings start with me walking the perimeter, boots crunching on gravel paths, checking sensors for glitches. The owner, some distant board, rarely shows. But today, as clouds thickened overhead, my tablet buzzed with an update. Elena Voss, the new CEO, en route, unscheduled. I adjusted the entry protocols, wiped dust from the lobby's touch-screen directory, and waited. She pulled up just as the first flakes hit, stepping out in a tailored coat that cut sharp against the gray sky. Tall, with dark hair pulled back tight, her gaze swept the facade, assessing, like she was already calculating efficiencies. "Ms. Voss," I said, extending a hand. "I'm Riley, estate manager. Welcome." Her grip was firm, cool. "Elena, show me around. I need to see what we're working with." No pleasantries. We moved inside, the automatic doors hissing shut behind us. The lobby's LED strips cast a clean blue light, highlighting the minimalist lines, white walls, embedded screens displaying weather feeds and system stats. As we toured, the storm built outside. Wind tugged at the reinforced windows, snow piling fast against the panes. I pointed out the retreat wings, the conference pods with their holographic displays, the eco-heated pools buried under now. Self-sustaining, mostly, I explained. Solar and geothermal, but winter pushes the grid. She nodded, eyes lingering on the control hub, a wall of monitors I'd maintained through long nights. Impressive isolation. That's the point, right? Disconnect to reconnect. Her voice carried an edge, like the words tasted off. I caught it then. The subtle fatigue in her posture, the way her shoulders held a fraction too rigid, eyes shadowed under that poise. But what was the real reason this high-powered CEO was here, alone, in a storm? The answer was buried deep, and the next 48 hours would force it out. We reached the main suite, a spacious unit with floor-to-ceiling views, meant for VIPs. "This is the secure one," I said. "Backup systems here." Thunder rumbled low, and the lights dimmed, a warning surge. Alarms chimed softly from my tablet. "Storm's hitting harder. Generator should kick in." But it didn't. The outage hit sudden, plunging us into shadow. Emergency LEDs flickered on, casting a red hue over the room. Outside, whiteout swallowed the hills. "Power's down," I muttered, pulling up diagnostics. Failed. Blizzard buried the lines. No way to the auxiliary shed without risking frostbite. Elena stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the chaos. "Options?" Her tone stayed even, but I saw the flicker. Control slipping. "Suite's got battery reserves. Heat for 48 hours. Rest of the estate goes cold." She turned, eyes meeting mine in the low light. "Then we stay put." Awkward silence stretched. I was the manager, she the boss. Boundaries clear in boardrooms, blurred now in this forced huddle. I busied myself with the emergency kit, pulling blankets and lanterns, while she paced the sleek floor, phone useless, without signal. Our first real exchange came halting. "How long have you run this place?" she asked, sinking into an armchair, the fabric whispering under her. 5 years, I replied, setting up the battery lantern. Its glow softened her features, revealing lines of exhaustion she hid well. "City pressures," I guessed. "Deals closing late, flights delayed. Keeps me grounded." She nodded, but her gaze drifted, guarded like a locked server. I felt it too, that reserve mirroring my own, rural roots teaching me to hold back, especially with women who carried worlds on their shoulders. The wind battered the glass, sealing us in. Night fell heavy. The estate's smart hum silenced. We settled into routines. Me checking vents, her reviewing files on a charged tablet. The suite felt smaller, our movements brushing close in the confined space. The estate's smart hum was silenced, but the suite was now filled with a different kind of noise. The quiet awareness of two people sharing a space meant for one. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the suite, turning the sleek furniture into unfamiliar shapes. I rummaged through the kit, pulling out thermal blankets and protein bars, my hands moving from years of handling these places. Practical? No fuss. Elena watched from the armchair, her legs crossed, one foot tapping a slow rhythm against the floor. She reached for her bag, unzipping it with precise fingers, laying out a tablet and a slim notebook, like they were tools for battle. No wasted motion, everything aligned just so on the glass coffee table. It contrasted my own way, stuffing things into corners, making do with what fit. We talked then, brief, about the estate's bones. "This retreat," she said, tapping the tablet to life, its screen glowing faint in the red light. "It's for execs to unplug, right? Data shows isolation boosts creativity, but only if the systems hold." Her voice stayed level, like she was pitching to a board. I nodded, folding a blanket over the couch. "Yeah, built for that. Tech to fade into the background. Solar feeds the grid, geothermal keeps it warm. But storms like this, test it all." I glanced up, catching her eyes. They held steady, but underneath, a weariness lingered, like she'd been running on empty circuits too long. I sensed it more as we moved around the space. The isolation she carried, not just from the storm, but deeper. City life, I figured, where connections were transactions, quick and clean. Her notebook pages filled with notes, margins tight with lists. But her pen paused sometimes, gaze drifting to the window where snow blurred the world. It mirrored my own quiet aches, the rural silences back home that taught you to stand alone. But here, in this forced closeness, it felt different. Not empty, but waiting. The living area drew us in, a wide open space with modular seating and a kitchenette tucked against one wall. I headed there to boil water on the induction plate, battery-powered, still humming. Elena followed, setting her things down nearby. "Need help?" she asked, stepping close to grab mugs from the cabinet. Our arms brushed, accidental, her sleeve soft against my flannel. Heat rose in my chest, unbidden. That touch changed the temperature in the room. I'd buried my desires for years, but in that moment, I knew. This woman was about to uncover every one of them. I poured the water, steam curling up, and handed her a mug. "Tea or coffee packets in there?" She chose tea, her fingers grazing mine again as she took it. The touch lingered a second too long, electric in the dimness. I turned to the counter, stirring my own, but my mind raced. What was this spark? Her poise cracked just enough to show the woman beneath, tired eyes, a faint crease between her brows. It pulled at something in me, unexpected, like finding a clear stream in dry land. I'd managed this place alone for years, content in the routine, desires tucked away under layers of work. Women, like her, sharp, distant, weren't part of that world. Yet, here we were, bodies close in the narrow kitchen, breaths mingling with the steam. Attraction flickered, quiet but insistent, born from the isolation pressing us together. She leaned against the counter, sipping her tea, the mug cradled in both hands. This setup, it's efficient. But does it ever feel too controlled? Her question hung soft, probing. I met her gaze, the red light warming her face. Sometimes. The tech keeps things running, but the quiet, that's what sticks. We stood there, proximity unavoidable, the suite's walls closing in with the wind's howl. It stirred reflections I hadn't voiced, the way her presence filled the space, not overwhelming, but fitting, like a piece I'd overlooked. Then the power flickered out completely. The emergency LEDs dimmed to nothing, plunging us into true dark. Only the lantern's glow remained, pulling us closer still. Reliance sharpened, the storm's roar the only sound beyond our breathing. The dark settled thick, broken only by the lantern's steady beam. I grabbed my coat from the hook, the wool heavy in the chill that crept in fast. I need to check the backup panel, I said, voice cutting the quiet. Might reroute power from the secondary batteries. Elena stood, pulling on her own jacket, sleek and lined with something synthetic that rustled soft. I'll come. Can't sit here guessing. We stepped out into the hall. The estate's corridors empty, wind whistling through sealed vents. Snow pressed against the glass doors, a white wall blurring everything beyond. The control room lay at the end, buried under layers of tech, servers humming faint on reserves, screens dark now. I pried open the access panel, cold metal biting my fingers, and traced the lines with a flashlight. Wires snaked like roots, but the blizzard had done its work. Lines iced over, feeds frozen. Elena shone her light close, her breath visible in the dropping air. Can you bypass it? She asked, leaning in, her shoulder brushing mine. I tried, flipping switches, rerouting through the geothermal tap. Sparks jumped once, then nothing. Failure hit sharp. The system locked down, conserving what little we had. No good, I muttered, stepping back. The cold clawed deeper, forcing us to retreat. Back in the suite, the lantern's glow felt smaller, the space tighter. Hunger gnawed, so I headed to the kitchenette, pulling canned soup and a portable stove from the kit. Elena watched as I measured water, her hands idle at first. Let me, she said, taking the can opener, her movements precise, like handling a contract. I stirred the pot, the steam rising slow, carrying the faint scent of tomatoes and herbs. Our worlds showed in the details. Me dumping in extras from memory, salt from a shaker I'd stocked rough, her measuring spices from a packet she'd pulled from her bag, exact to the pinch. You always cook like this? She asked, stirring now, her arm close to mine. Out here, you make do. No deliveries in a storm. She nodded, but her eyes flickered. City habits, where meals came prepped, plated by others. The divide hung there, quiet, her polish against my calluses. As the soup simmered, she opened up in fragments. The city doesn't stop, she said, voice low over the bubble of the pot. Meetings bleed into nights, flights chasing deals across coasts. This retreat was supposed to be my reset, space to think without the noise. Her spoon paused, gaze on the steam. I saw the weight then, the pressures etching lines around her eyes. Boardroom battles, I guessed, where every word was a stake. Sounds like it chases you anyway, I replied, ladling into bowls. We sat at the counter, knees almost touching, the warmth of the meal pulling us closer. My roots came out easy, offering back what she'd given. Back home, the land sets the pace. Fields don't rush, but they demand you show up steady, learn to carry quiet. There, storms pass, but you hold through. She met my eyes, spoon halfway to her mouth. That sounds solid. Mine's all motion, no anchor. Empathy flowed simple, no advice, just the nod of shared ground. Her fatigue softened in the lantern light, a crack in the armor. I tried to set lines then, pulling back after the meal. This is professional, I said, clearing bowls, stacking them quick. Storm ends, we go back to rolls. But she lingered, handing me a dish, our fingers brushing wet from rinse water. I said it was professional, but the look in her eyes told me the storm wasn't the only thing about to break. It was only a matter of time before that line crumbled. The glance held, her eyes searching mine, dark and unflinching. I looked away first, but the pull tugged harder, boundary failing like a weak seal. Vulnerability slipped in, her hand hesitating on the counter, mine steadying the stack. Small, but it built, the emotional thread tightening in the dim. The storm answered, wind rising to a roar, snow piling against the walls. It confined us deeper indoors. No escape now. The sweet our world pulls unnamed but growing. The cold deepened fast, a physical reminder that our professional distance was a luxury we could no longer afford. We retreated to the living area, the lantern's glow pulling us to the couch as night deepened, its batteries humming faint against the storm's rage. We sat close, the modular cushions dipping under our weight, space between us shrinking with the cold. Elena pulled a throw over her legs, the fabric whispering soft, and I mirrored her, tucking my feet in. The air carried a chill now, the suite's reserves straining. "Can't sleep with that wind," she said, voice low, eyes on the flickering flame. I nodded, the lantern's light carving shadows across her face, softening the sharp lines of her day. Conversation came slow, like thawing ground, starting with the estate's hum, now silenced. She shifted, knees brushing mine under the throw. This isolation here, it's nothing compared to the city's version. Her words hung deliberate, each one measured. I waited, the lantern's warmth a small anchor. Work life doesn't exist for me. It's all one feed. Emails at dawn, calls through dinner. I built the company to connect people, but it left me cut off. No time for anything real. Her gaze dropped to her hands, fingers tracing the throw's edge. I saw it then, the isolation she wore like a second skin. Boardrooms full of voices, but empty of touch. Lovers faded, she implied. Schedules swallowing chances, family reduced to quarterly updates. You chase control and it controls you back, she added, voice cracking just enough. The confession pulled at me, mirroring cracks I'd sealed long ago. Sounds like the fields back home. Endless work, but the quiet presses in. I paused, the lantern's light steady on us. Grew up conservative, small town where you learn to hide what doesn't fit. Desires for women like you, they stay buried under chores and silence, never voice them, afraid it'd break everything steady. My chest tightened saying it, the rural weight surfacing, nights alone, watching horizons, wants locked like gates against the wind. Elena's eyes met mine, unflinching, the air thickening with shared ache. No judgment, just that quiet hold, her presence coaxing truths I'd kept to myself. A cold snap hit then, the vents hissing weaker, temperature dropping sharp. We huddled closer, shoulders touching now, the throw a shared barrier that felt none. Her arm pressed against mine, warm through layers, and I didn't pull away. The nearness built slow, breaths sinking in the dim. Professional boundaries, I tried, voice soft, shifting just an inch, but her hand found my sleeve, fingers lingering on the cuff, subtle, like testing frost on a window. The touch failed my words. Electric, quiet, pulling heat from the cold. I covered her hand with mine, accidental at first, then holding, skin meeting skin in the lantern's glow. That contact stirred it deeper, a sense of belonging creeping in unexpected, not from the storm's force, but her steady nearness, filling spaces I'd thought empty. Her guarded world met my rooted one, isolations weaving without words. Vulnerability lingered in the touches, her thumb brushing my wrist, mine steadying her knee as shivers passed. The suite felt less like a trap, more like ground we'd claimed together, the wind outside fading to a hum. Morning came clear, light filtering through frosted panes, bringing a tentative calm. We rose, coffee brewing on the last reserves, and turned to repairs. Collaboration, starting simple, her helping trace lines, our hands brushing in the work. The lantern burned low as midnight passed, its circle tight around us on the couch. Elena's knee stayed against mine, the contact a quiet anchor in the dropping cold. "I didn't expect this," she murmured, eyes on the flame. "Coming here to assess, not to unravel." Her admission flowed then, work's grip on her life. Nights in hotels with city lights bleeding through blinds. No room for the soft things, like shared silences or hands held without agenda. Isolation wrapped her, she said. Lovers lost to the grind. A partner once who waited too long and left. "Ambition's a thief," she added, voice deliberate, the lantern catching the wear in her eyes. I leaned in, the throw binding us closer. "Thief's right. Back home, the land steals different, demands you bury what scares it. Conservative roots, where wanting a woman meant whispers and walls. I suppressed it all, desires tucked like tools in a shed, out of sight." The words came raw, rural silences breaking, nights I'd spent alone with the wind, longing unspoken. Elena's gaze held, warm in the dim, her hand shifting to rest near mine. The cold deepened, Sweet's heat flickering, pulling us tighter, bodies aligning against the chill. I tried distance, murmuring, "This is the storm talking?" But her fingers intertwined with mine, subtle, failing the line. The touch lingered, professionalism crumbling in that hold, desire surfacing quiet through the press of her palm. Belonging emerged then, unexpected, her presence fitting my guarded spaces like rain on dry earth. We stayed like that, vulnerabilities shared, the night holding us. Dawn broke crisp, clarity settling as we planned repairs, her joining me at the panel, hands working close in the new light. Morning light cut through the frosted windows, turning the snow outside into a sharp white glare. We bundled up against the cold, coats zipped tight, and stepped into the hall. The estate's corridors felt hollow without the hum of systems, our boots echoing soft on the polished floors. "We checked the main feeds first," I said, leading us toward the utility wing. Elena nodded, her breath fogging the air, tablet tucked under her arm like a shield. The wind still howled low, but the blizzard had eased enough for us to move. Snow drifted against the doors, knee-deep in places, forcing us to shovel a path with the emergency tools. We reached the exterior access, prying the hatch open to a blast of icy wind. The solar arrays loomed ahead, panels buried under drifts, wires snaking toward the buried geothermal lines. I waded in first, snow soaking my jeans, and started digging at the junction box. Elena followed, her movements precise despite the mess, gloved hands clearing snow with steady sweeps. "Here," she said, pointing to a frozen conduit, her voice cutting clear over the gusts. We worked side by side, breaths quick, the labor pulling sweat under our layers. Her shoulder bumped mine as she reached for a tool, accidental but warm in the freeze. Her gaze caught me then, unflinching, as we knelt in the drift. Dark eyes steady against the whiteout, holding mine without the boardroom edge. Just raw, seeing through the work to the woman underneath. It pinned me, that look, stirring the fears I'd carried like frozen roots. Vulnerability scared me deep. Rural lessons teaching to hold steady, not crack open. What if this pull led to loss? Her world of sleek deals clashing with my grounded days, desires for her surfacing like thaw water, risky and real. I paused, shovel mid-lift, chest tight. "This snow's hiding more than wires," I muttered, the words slipping out. She set her tool down, snowflakes catching in her hair. "What do you mean?" Her tone stayed even, but the gaze didn't waver, pulling truth from the cold. I straightened, wiping frost from my gloves. "Us, working like this. It's not just repairs, feels like digging up things I've kept buried." The confession hung in the wind, honest, my fears of opening up, longings for ties that lasted, not fleeting glances in small towns where women like her didn't stay. Conservative shadows lingered, desires for authentic connection hidden under work's weight. I want real, not the isolation I've known, but letting it in, that's the hard part. My fear was out there, hanging in the icy wind, but what she told me next about her own life, the secrets she kept buried under her success, would change everything. Elena stood closer, the snow settling around us like a veil. "I know that dig. My longings are the same. City built me sharp, but inside I crave something solid, ties that don't break under pressure." Her voice came deliberate, breath visible between us. Ambition hid it all. Lovers who saw the title, not me. But here, with you, it feels possible, authentic, like this labor. The exchange flowed raw, her words mirroring mine, hidden aches surfacing in the shared effort. No rush, just the slow shift, tension easing into understanding, her presence fitting the spaces I'd guarded. We traced the lines further, clearing ice from the geothermal tap, but the feed stayed dead. Failure settling heavy as the snow. "Can't force it today," I said, stepping back, hands numb. Elena nodded, but instead of pulling away, she stayed close, her arm brushing mine in the wind. We retreated to the suite, shedding wet layers by the door, the quiet comfort wrapping us. She handed me a towel, fingers lingering on mine, warm now against the chill. I took it, our eyes meeting again. The labor's aftermath leaving space for this. Bodies near, understanding, deepening without words. Her hand rested on my shoulder a beat longer, steady, pulling a sigh from me. The fears softened in that touch. Vulnerability, not a break, but a bridge. Afternoon dragged in, the storm's lull confining us deeper, isolation turning the sweet into a cocoon. The quiet pressed, prompting confessions that brewed unspoken, ready to spill. Afternoon light faded fast, the suite's windows frosting over as the storm dug in again. We sat on the couch, the throw draped across our laps, the lantern's glow the only warmth left. Elena's tablet lay forgotten on the table, her shoulders slumped now, the day's labor weighing heavy. I watched her, the way her fingers twisted the blanket's edge, a small tell of the cracks building. The cold seeped deeper, vents, silent, pulling us closer without words. Her knee pressed against mine, steady, but her breath came uneven, like wind catching in the eaves. She broke first, voice low, eyes fixed on the floor. It's not just the power. This place, it's supposed to be my anchor, but it shows me what I've lost. The words spilled then, deliberate but raw, ambition's toll, unraveling. She spoke of the climb, nights in glass towers, deals closing with handshakes that left her empty. A partner once, fierce and close, who faded under the hours, the constant chase leaving no room for mornings, tangled in sheets. I chose the board over her, over us. Family pushed legacy, but it cost everything soft. Her voice cracked, tears welling but held back, the guarded CEO fracturing in the dim, losses tied tight to her drive, connections severed like cut wires, isolation not chosen but earned, one promotion at a time. I stayed still, my hand finding her arm, fingers resting light on her sleeve. The touch anchored her, mirroring the guard I'd built myself, rural walls thick against the world's narrow gaze. I've lost pieces too, I said, voice steady, the cold sharpening my words. Fields teach resilience, but they carve you hollow. Women I wanted, but never reached. Conservative soil where desire meant risk, alone. Her breakdown pulled mine close, our hearts echoing in the quiet. Her tears slipping now, hot against my skin as she leaned in. I held her there, arm wrapping slow, the weight of her head on my shoulder a trust I'd never expected. The temperature dropped sharper, the sweet's reserves failing, chill biting through our layers. We shifted under the throw, bodies aligning for warmth, her back to my chest, my arm around her waist, breaths mingling close. Her hand covered mine, fingers lacing tight, the heat building between us like a hidden current. No rush, just the press of her against me, curves fitting in the dim, desire surfacing quiet in the way her thigh shifted, unspoken in her sigh. This feels right, she murmured. Subtext heavy, her thumb tracing my palm. Not the storm, you. The words hung, laced with want, her body warm now, pulling mine closer, the cold forgotten in that hold. I tried to pull back, heart thudding, whispering, we should keep space. This ends with the thaw. But she turned in my arms, eyes meeting mine, unflinching, her hand cupping my cheek. The attempt failed, distance crumbling under her gaze, the pull reinforcing like roots in frozen ground. Her lips brushed my jaw, accidental but not, desire threading through the touch, resilience weaving in, two women holding through the break, connection blooming from the ache. I leaned in, forehead to hers, the subtext alive in our breaths, once named without words. We stayed like that, vulnerabilities shared, the storm's rage softening outside. Resilience held us, her tears drying on my shirt, my guard easing in her nearness. Connection deepened, unexpected belongings settling like snow after fury. The evening lull came then, wind easing to a whisper, allowing space for the honesty we'd skirted, pivotal words waiting in the quiet. We had shared our secrets, but could our connection survive the truth of our different worlds? This conversation would either bridge the canyon or shatter the fragile belonging we'd found. The evening lull wrapped the sweet in a fragile calm, but the quiet was heavy with the weight of the truths we had just shared. The storm had broken our walls, and now we had to face what was on the other side. The wind's howl dropping to a steady moan outside. Elena and I sat close on the couch, her head still resting on my shoulder. The throw tangled around us like shared roots holding through frost. The lantern flickered low, casting her face in soft oranges, the lines of her earlier breakdown easing into something quieter. I felt the weight of it all. Pressing in, the storm not just outside but between us, stirring barriers we'd skirted all day. Her hand stayed in mine, fingers laced loose, but the air thickened with what came next. "This can't stay in the dark," she said, voice deliberate, pulling back just enough to meet my eyes. The words hung, unflinching, like a ridge line after rain. I nodded, chest tight, the confrontation rising slow. "Our worlds don't line up. Yours, city towers, deals that span coasts. Mine's this place, grounded in the hills, managing systems that keep it running quiet." The class divide surfaced raw, her sleek coat draped over the chair a reminder of boardrooms and flights, my flannel shirt still damp from the snow, smelling of earth and effort. Lifestyle barriers loomed, her isolation born of ambition's grind, mine from rural silences, where desires like this stayed buried under work's steady hand. What happens when the power comes back? You leave for the next summit, and I'm here, holding the quiet alone. My voice stayed even, but the fear edged in, vulnerability, cracking open the professional shell we'd worn. Elena's gaze held steady, her thumb tracing my palm, but tension coiled. Would this pull bridge us or snap under the weight? She shifted, knees pressing mine, the throw slipping. I see it. The gaps. My life moves fast. Connections thin as wire transfers. Yours feels solid, like the geothermal lines we cleared. Deep, holding heat through the cold. Her admission came honest. No polish, eyes tracing my face. But I've chased that authenticity, built this retreat to find it. And here you are, fitting the spaces I didn't know were empty. Mutual feelings spilled then, unexpected belonging weaving through the words. I feel it too, the pull from that first glance in the lobby. Not just the storm forcing us close. You see me? Not the title. And I want this, Riley. Us, beyond the roles. Her voice softened. Raw, the CEO's guard dissolving in the dim vulnerability, embraced like a hand extended over a canyon. I leaned in, forehead to hers, breaths mingling warm. Then we let it in, no more walls. The embrace came natural, arms wrapping slow, her body fitting against mine, curves pressing in the quiet, hearts thudding steady, professional lines blurred to nothing, her lips brushing my cheek, soft, then finding mine in a kiss that tasted of tea and unspoken wants. It deepened, hands roaming gentle under the throw, desire quiet but sure, dissolving the last barriers in that hold. The world outside faded, just us, belonging earned in the tangle of limbs and truths. Dawn broke with a hum, the generator kicking back, lights flickering on overhead. The storm resolved, snow easing to flurries, the estate's systems whirring to life. We pulled apart slow, but the connection lingered, her hand in mine, as we checked the panels. Outside, the hills emerged clear, paths visible again, the external world re-entering with the plow's distant rumble. Powers and stable, I said, tablet glowing in my grip. Elena stood close, shoulder to mine, watching the thaw. Good, but this doesn't end here. Affirmation settled simple, her voice low. We'll bridge it, me coming back, you visiting the city. Ongoing, not fleeting. No rush, just the promise. Her fingers squeezing mine, the sweet no longer a trap but a starting point. The emotional payoff wrapped us then. Quiet intimacy earned in the morning light. Her head on my shoulder again. Watching the snow melt from the eaves, a sense of home blooming unexpected. Two women, worlds apart, finding ground in each other's steady pull. The estate felt alive now, not isolated, our connection the real power humming beneath. Sunlight spilled across the suite's floor, turning the polished surfaces gold, the estate's systems humming steady now. I stirred first, Elena's arm draped over my waist, her breath warm against my neck. The night had shifted everything. Bodies tangled under the throw, kisses deepening into quiet claims, her hands mapping my skin like rediscovering ground after thaw. I lay still, reflecting on the change, the way her presence filled the space without overwhelming it. No more guarded glances or professional edges. Just this, her weight against me. Solid, the dynamic ours now, not dictated by storm or roles. Vulnerability lingered, not as ache, but as strength, her openness coaxing mine out like sun on frozen earth. She woke slow, eyes meeting mine in the light, a soft smile curving her lips. "Morning," she murmured, fingers tracing my arm, the touch deliberate, no hesitation. We rose together, coffee brewing on the restored induction plate, steam curling up to mingle with the scent of melting snow outside. The suite felt lived in now, blankets folded loose, her tablet beside my toolkit, worlds brushing close without clash. "We talk about this," she said, handing me a mug, our fingers lacing around the ceramic. Her voice stayed low, like sharing a secret with the hills. Plans unfolded soft, no grand declarations, just the practical weave of futures. "I'll clear space in my schedule. Weekends here, you in the city. Seeing my world, not just the deals." I nodded, sipping the heat, the bitterness grounding. "And I'll show you the rural edges beyond this estate, quiet spots where desires don't hide. Class lines blurred in the words, her sleek life opening to my rooted one, bridges built from truths we'd uncovered." The estate calmed around us, sensory details settling like dust after wind. Outside, the snowpack dripped from eaves, rhythmic against the glass, the geothermal vents sighing warm air back to life. Solar panels caught the sun, a faint whir starting as systems recharged. The tech sleek haven breathing again. We walked the halls, her hand in mine, the corridors no longer hollow, light streaming through cleared panes, highlighting the minimalist lines, the embedded screens, flickering stats like old friends returning. The air carried crisp pine from cracks in the doors, mixed with the faint ozone of powered circuits, the storm's fury a memory in the quiet. Her shoulder brushed mine as we checked the lobby, the automatic doors hissing open to fresh air, flurries gone, hills visible, sharp against the blue. Home emerged in those truths, unexpected, woven from her steady gaze and my unburied wants. Not the estate's walls, but this. Her laughter soft, as we fixed a loose panel, my hand steadying hers on the tool, belonging settling deep like roots, finding soil. Rural silences I'd known alone now shared, her city isolation eased by my grounded pull. Desires once suppressed bloomed here, authentic, two women claiming space in each other's worlds. No force, just the quiet fit, resilience in the way we'd held through the dark. Hints of paths ahead, flickered subtle. Her mentioning a cabin addition to the retreat. Ours, not just for guests. Voice warm over lunch. Simple sandwiches from the thawed stores. Me sketching quick lines on a napkin. Trails we'd walk together. Her joining the labor. Hands calloused from shared work. Futures, unfolded without rush. Visits planned in whispers. Her board meetings leaving room for evenings tangled. My routines opening to her nearness. The estate felt like starting ground, not end. Our connection, the real anchor, humming beneath the tech. Dawn light filtered through the pines, soft and unyielding, painting the estate in golds that chased the last shadows. Elena and I stood on the balcony, hands intertwined, fingers laced tight like roots breaking through frost, her palm warm against mine, steady in the crisp air carrying dew and pine. No words needed, just this image, the certainty of belonging found in the quiet pull we'd claimed. You know that resonance, don't you? The way unexpected connection feels like coming home after carrying silence too long. Two women, worlds apart, bridging canyons of isolation into shared ground, resilience blooming from vulnerability, desires no longer buried, but lived. the rural ache met by her unflinching gaze, our truths, the real power. If this quiet belonging stirs something in you, share your stories of unexpected connections below. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales of quiet truths, where hearts find their way through the storm.